Trauma is my jam, and by that I mean I help you understand what your body is doing. Let's make sense of it together.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Trauma to Triumph. Today's video and education topic is about what I have just been delving into personally myself this morning. So part of my appearance, I'm red and puffy because I've been crying, and my throat is a little constricted because that always seems to happen when I cry. But anyways, we're going to get into this today because it's important. And yes, it's something that I was unpacking myself this morning that relates to me, but I know that lots of other people feel and experience this. And again, trauma is my jam. So let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about something that feels small on the surface, but it can hit incredibly deep inside, as I found out this morning. So that feeling of not being chosen can hurt deeply, especially for those of us that have attachment wounds from our childhood. Now, feelings of not being chosen show up when we may not necessarily be invited somewhere, or somebody doesn't reach out to us, but they reach out to somebody else, or maybe you feel like you offer support and the person didn't receive it or want it or was unable to accept it. And suddenly this turns into a big moment. So if you know what I'm talking about and have experienced this and that resonates with you, then this video is definitely for you. Here's what I've learned to be true. When something small activates something large inside of us, like a huge emotional response, it's usually not about the present moment. It's not about the current situation. It's not about the people that's involved. It's not about the circumstances of the situation. What you are actually triggering and delving back into is attachment memory from your childhood. Here's the thing. If as a child your emotional needs were not met, or they were dismissed, minimized, or turned back on you, your nervous system, out of survival, developed and encoded beliefs about yourself in order to keep you safe. So maybe you heard things like this growing up. Some of them are mine, some of them are what other people have shared with me over my years. You're too sensitive. You're too emotional. No one can talk to you. You're just overwhelming. You're too much. Everybody has needs. You're not special. Other people have it way worse. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? Just accept that that's how things are. I don't understand why you're upset. You need to stop overreacting. Or maybe when you tried to express hurt, the focus immediately shifted to the other person's feelings. Over time, those messages become internalized as your feelings being too much. Your needs inconvenience people. If you express hurt, you might threaten connection. And that you shouldn't compete with other people's pain. Or the one that we're talking about today is if I'm not the one that people choose. I'm not anybody's number one. So when things happen now in adulthood, like maybe not being invited, which is okay. We don't have to be invited to everything, but there's an invitation you didn't get. People aren't reaching out to you. Or you're not somebody's first call. Your nervous system can interpret that moment as confirmation of your old story. Not being included becomes, I'm not wanted. And that response isn't dramatic, it's developmental. Many survivors, myself included, this is a particular wound that I carry very deeply, It's called the too much imprint. You were too emotional, too intense, too sensitive, too reactive, and too needy. But here's the truth. You, like me, were emotionally expressive in an emotionally immature system. That doesn't make you too much. That means the container around you, your family system, your support systems, couldn't hold you. Here's the thing. When a child's nervous system isn't co-regulated, they don't learn that their feelings make sense or that their feelings are valid. They don't learn that it's safe and that they can be upset and still be loved. And they don't learn that their needs, like having needs, doesn't mean loss of connection, doesn't mean burdening other people, doesn't mean having to compare themselves to other people in the world and what they're going through. Right? Think about it. If you're not told that your feelings make sense, then you believe your feelings to be untrue, invalid, not worthy of being recognized and owned. If you don't understand that you can be upset or have negative emotions, express them, and still be loved unconditionally by the people in your life, you don't learn how to express them properly. What you do learn to do instead, again, out of survival mode, is to shrink, is to self-soothe alone, to disappear when hurting, and to intellectualize instead of express. And then as adults, we wonder why we're lonely. Here's what often happens to those adults of us that still carry these attachment wounds. You feel hurt, and then you immediately feel guilty for feeling hurt. You tell yourself you're overreacting, and you minimize your needs. You isolate, you process alone, and then that loneliness reinforces the belief that no one chooses me. But here's the painful irony. When you disappear in your need, people can't choose you. When you don't share your needs, when you isolate, when you go off and process alone, people can't choose you. And not because they wouldn't, but because they can't see you. Many adults that are walking around and carrying this emotional attachment wound with them from childhood present to the world as strong, capable, emotionally intelligent adults. So other people assume she's fine. She doesn't need me. She's solid. She's the strong one. And that can create a quiet loneliness. Another layer to this is guilt. I'm telling you, I know from early on in my life, and again, not intentional, not blaming people, not any of that stuff, just calling out a fact on how I feel and see it. But guilt was programmed into my life from a very young age. From a very young age, I was generally trained to look through the lens of guilt. Again, no blame, no shame, just calling out how I see it and my experience was. So I have those feelings like if I see someone else is struggling, that I shouldn't have any feelings. Like it's about them and not about me, and my feelings don't matter. When I feel like I have a need, I don't want to burden somebody else. I have that guilt. I don't want to put something else on somebody else's plate. Or when I feel like I want to reach out and pick up the phone because I could just use some emotional connection in that moment to help me process and move through whatever my need is in that moment. Don't want to inconvenience anybody. Because everybody else has needs. I'm not special. Why should you stop your day to sit with me is how I feel. How dare I ask you to take time out of your day to sit with me? But here's the thing. Healthy adult relationships allow for emotional coexistence. Two people can be struggling at the same time. Your hurt doesn't have to compete with somebody else's hurt or grief or pain. And that belief is usually rooted in childhood environments where one person's emotional gravity dominated everything else. The truth is, that's not secure attachment. The good news is we can rewire our thoughts, our nervous system, to learn how to step in and develop healthy attachments in adulthood. Now, the shift begins with simple but powerful reframing. So instead of saying, I'm too sensitive, you can try reframing that in, it makes sense that this hurts or that I'm feeling this. You can go ahead and you can validate your emotions. So instead of I'm overreacting or I'm being too sensitive to this situation, you can remind yourself that it makes sense that you feel hurt right now. Reframing it into a sentence that validates, that acknowledges, is self-attunement. It doesn't blame anybody. It doesn't dramatize. It doesn't collapse. That statement right there validates. And when we validate ourselves, our nervous system softens instead of spirals. And softening is safety, and safety is healing. Often the fear about not being included isn't actually that I wasn't invited. It's, what if I'm not wanted? And that fear has a root. When a primary caregiver didn't emotionally choose you, your body remembers that deeply. And even when you intellectually understand why, healing doesn't happen through logic alone. It happens through corrective emotional experiences. Again, I have been doing my own personal journey for years. And I grew up where I had a primary caregiver that, and today, listen, logically, I understand. I understand the environment that this person grew up in. I understand the generational trauma and cycles that were passed down. I understand why this caregiver was emotionally unavailable to me. And I say that with love and gratitude for what they were able to give me. But the reality is, I had a primary caregiver in my life that could not emotionally provide for me what I needed. I always felt that what I needed was too much. I always felt like I was some kind of like broken enigma, right? But that's not true either. The truth is that for whatever reason, and again, I have a laundry list, logical reasons that make sense that this person was not able to emotionally provide for me. 100% makes sense. They didn't receive it either. And you can't give what you don't know unless you take the steps, which has been my journey my entire life, to learn different. So it makes sense that healing doesn't happen through logic alone. Because let me tell you, as you can see, I'm beginning to become emotional. And I had this huge emotional reaction this morning while I was processing and moving through this stuff myself. So logic means nothing. Because logically it all makes sense. Logically it makes sense that this person could not give me what I needed. And that logically, that what I needed and asked for wasn't too much. It was reasonable. It was totally appropriate, but it wasn't met. So even though that for years, I have logically understood that this person's inability to give to me what I needed was because they didn't have it to give, it doesn't mean it doesn't still freaking hurt. It doesn't mean that my nervous system isn't constantly reacting or running with that underlining message of my needs are not important. My needs will not get met. Asking for help will lead to me being hurt or breaking connection or whatever the phrases are that I tell myself. Because my nervous system still remembers. And it's my nervous system that needs the help healing. So again, healing doesn't happen through logic alone. If it did, I'd be healed a long time ago. Healing happens through corrective emotional experiences. It happens through being seen. It happens through being held, and it happens through letting someone witness you when you have needs. And sometimes it happens through learning to say to yourself, I matter. Even if it feels unbelievable at first. All right, so I'm now going to share with you a simple regulation practice that you can do and that I'm going to do when that feeling of I'm not wanted gets activated. Because remember, it's not just cognitive. It's not just about the logic. It's about your nervous system that needs healing. So here is a three-step reset that you can do. Step number 1 is to name without shame. So if it feels comfortable for you, I would suggest placing a hand on your heart, and you're going to take a slow breath in and a gentle yet slightly longer exhale out. Helps your nervous system to get the signal that it's safe. And you're going to say quietly or out loud, it makes sense that this hurts. Now, if you have any of that old negative looping beliefs running through your head, like I'm overreacting, I shouldn't be feeling this, I'm too much, I'm over emotional, keep saying, it makes sense that this hurts. Drown those other voices out, those other loops, and just say, it makes sense that this hurts. Naming without judgment reduces the activation and brings your brain back online. Step 2, bring yourself back to the present moment in safety. So what you're going to do is you can look around the room that you're in and you can notice and name 5 things that you see. Or if you need something more tangible, you can pick up an item and you can hold it in your hand and do the same thing. Describe it, notice how it feels. This brings your nervous system back to the present moment. And it reminds your nervous system that I'm here right now in this present moment and I'm safe. Attachment triggers often feel urgent because they pull us into that old emotional timeline again. When you bring yourself back into the present moment, you are bringing yourself back into your current reality. Step number 3 is a reparenting statement. Basically, you're reframing and rephrasing, but you do it from a perspective of what a nurturing and loving parent would say. For me, that's difficult for me to comprehend. So for me, I change my statements to be like, what would I say to my best friend if she was going through this right now? So however it works for you, what you're going to do is you're going to give yourself a new statement that is true and validating. So it could be something like, my feelings don't threaten connection. I'm allowed to have needs. My emotions are valid in this moment and they make sense. I matter even if somebody's not able to meet me right now. So, whatever it is, find a way to reframe it from a perspective of compassion and empathy. So, again, what would you say to your best friend, or what would a nurturing, loving, kind authority figure say to you in this moment? Now, you're likely going to feel disbelief when you make that statement, and you may even feel sadness. That's okay. This is not about forcing belief. You're not just going to come up with a reparenting statement and say it once and be like, oh, it's all gone. All those years of compiled trauma gone. It's not how it works. Because again, this is not about forcing belief. What you are offering is corrective language to yourself. And over time, repetition will build new neural pathways in your brain. And it will also calm your nervous system into understanding and learning that, hey, maybe, just maybe, my feelings are valid here. Maybe, just maybe, if I keep hearing this statement said to myself enough times, I'll believe it and it will be true. And that's the truth. That is how we rewire. The truth, again, is that attachment wounds live in implicit memory. And when we validate, ground, and reparent, we can reduce the amygdala activation that's happening. We can increase vagal tone, which helps us feel safe. We can reinforce internal safety, and we can interrupt those shame or guilt spirals that happen. This is how developmental trauma heals in adulthood. Not by eliminating or ignoring the pain, but by staying with ourselves while we're in it. Now, I'm going to also leave you with a quick, deeper regulation breath work tool that you can use at any time, but anytime we're doing any kind of this work. So even just doing the regulation in the 3 frameworks sometimes brings up heavy feelings. It just does. Healing work is a process, and it's not easy, right? Like anything new that you're learning or trying, when you first started to ride a bike, it wasn't easy, and you probably fell off a couple times before you figured out how to balance on the bike. Like, growth itself requires work and discomfort sometimes, but the whole goal here is to help you heal, and I don't want you to leave from watching this video or from doing the work in your personal life feeling heavier than you did when you experienced the initial activation. So, for deeper regulation, you can do this at any time. So if your chest feels heavy or tight, or your emotions just feel like they're weighing on you, you can do this simple breath work. You inhale for the count of 4, you hold for the count of 4, and you exhale for the count of 6. The key here is the longer exhale, because that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and that tells your body, that is the system that tells your body whether you're safe, whether you need to fight, flight, freeze. That is the system that you want to activate to help you regulate and come back to that sense of safety. So again, inhale for the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, and exhale for the count of 6. I always encourage everybody to do at least 3 to 5 of these breaths to just give a moment for your parasympathetic nervous system to activate, and do it longer if you need to. If this topic hits something inside of you, it doesn't mean you're broken. It's an invitation to explore. It likely means that you have depth, so you feel deeply. It means that you likely have an attachment history, often stemming from your childhood. And it means your nervous system learned how to survive in order to protect you and keep you safe. And survival strategies are brilliant when you think about it. they just aren't always sustainable in adulthood. You were never too much. You were misattuned. You were forced to grow up in an environment that was not able to safely hold you. And again, I say that without shame or blame for the people that were in your environment. It's just the truth. But the great news is it can be repaired. It can be repaired. So, if this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever struggled with feeling like you're not someone's first choice? And let's start normalizing conversations like this, because healing becomes easier when it's not hidden. And it takes a community with compassion, empathy, and support in order to feel safe enough to start doing the healing work. All right, friends, I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to be able to share my knowledge of trauma with you, my experience of trauma, my healing journey as it's unfolding with me, because, today's script came out of the processing and the emotional work that I did this morning that I was not prepared or expecting to do. But it happened. It started off with a tarot reading, and it turned into me exploring this struggle that I'm having right now with this old childhood wound that is coming up where I don't feel like I'm anybody's first choice. And again, it's not that the people in my life wouldn't choose me. 99% of the time, the people in my life, my husband included, have no idea that I don't feel chosen. They have no idea that I have a need. And it's up to me to change that. All right, friends, until next time, I thank you so deeply for the honor to be able to share my experience and my knowledge with you all. And I want you to give yourself credit for showing up. Healing is work. And it's not easy work. It is so worth it. It is so worth it. But I'd be lying to you if I told you it was easy. And the truth is, if it was easy, more people would do it. And that's kind of why trauma is my jam. Trauma is my jam because I know the benefits of healing from it, but I also don't understand why everybody's not doing it. And I do and I don't understand. When I say I don't understand, I do understand. We don't talk about it enough, and it's not easy at times. So my hope is that by talking about it more, we normalize it. By sharing my story, I give you an example of it's okay to heal. It's okay for it to be messy. It's okay for it to have ugly moments. Because I also share all the beautiful moments that come from it. At least I think I do. Anyways, I am starting to ramble right now, so I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. I thank you so much, and I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.